Hello, welcome to today's Founder Insights. Today I'm here with Daniel Callaghan. How are you, Daniel?
Very well, Rob. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. Daniel is CEO and co-founder of Veremark, and Veremark has recently become 31st in the Technology Fast 500 through Deloitte. So they're doing great things. And this isn't Daniel's first rodeo; it's his second time round. So wanted to have a chat with Daniel today and just hear, given that it is journey number two, what are some of the lessons that you took away from journey number one that you've applied at Veremark?
Yeah, well, look, delighted to be here and happy to share any insights that I can. Uh, as mentioned, this is my second entrepreneurial journey. So it's the first lesson I should have learned is don't do it again. And that would have been a good one to take away, but nevertheless, I failed on that lesson. For those who aren't familiar with Veremark, we are a global pre-employment and screening and background checking company. So firmly in the HR tech and people compliance tech space. So if you need to check anyone with a criminal record or past education and such, then companies who use us all around the world. My first business was also a global freelance marketplace that we set up in 2009, placing high-end independent consultants via an online platform into companies at really the advent of the sort of gig economy world. So again, very firmly cemented in the world of HR tech and recruitment tech as well. I think the first major and key lesson that we certainly learned the second time going round was really about the establishment of that founding team. To put it into context, my first business is still running 14 years on and is profitable and operating globally. So, it all ended well on that front. But certainly when we picked our co-founders of the business that stage, there was myself and one other. We picked each other almost like a carbon copy of our mutual skill sets. And so we were both very strong on the commercial and sales front. Um, Obviously, from a balance perspective, or then trying to find any technical skills in that, it's a big miss. So when it came to Veremark, we were much more conscientious around finding a much more complementary set of founders and skill sets. At this time, we have three founders in the business who one is our chief product officer, one is our chief technology officer, and I act as role as CEO. So the sort of swim lanes are quite nicely divided in that one designs it, one builds it, and my job is to sell it, which means we can each lean on each other's expertise. And I think that has fundamentally made a long and enduring difference to the business and how quickly we can move. And as you say, has seen us listed on pretty much every high growth business list out there.
Yeah, fantastic. And that I think that's a pretty important message because it is you do tend to like the people who are like you. So you go, oh, I'll get along well with them. I'll bring them into the co-founding team. But if they're not providing any additional skill set that perhaps you might be missing yourself, then perhaps they're not going to be the right fit. And in terms of Veremark, you mentioned you've got those three founders. Each has their skill set and it's complementary to each other. What have been some of the challenges that you have faced second time around that are new learnings for you, perhaps?
Yeah, no, first, second, third time around, I think the challenges always remain the same, right? It's how can you prove that you've built something that people want as quickly as possible before either the money starts coming in or the money runs out. And for us, and one of the lessons that we chose, when we launched the first business in 2009, as I say, it was right at the cusp of the gig economy. Uber was doing well, but was the professional services market ready for the same model? So we were quite on the forefront of creating that disruptive consultancy type platform. Background streaming, by contrast, is obviously a much more mature and established industry. So it just becomes about building a better product. And therefore, there's already a predefined ICP that you can go after. But I think again, the next key challenge is how do you go from what is obviously a very broad market to really narrowing it down to focus on your own niche and your first tight ICP to really again prove that there is a potential market to expand into. And I think that is a challenge for all founders. Obviously, becomes a pivotal moment when you do hit that.
And in terms of Veremark, have you achieved that, do you feel, at this stage, or is that still a work in progress?
I think it's always a work in progress, right? All businesses evolve, but from a core pre-employment and background screening service, I mean, our services are mostly used by companies in regulated industries. I think people have a desire often to start at enterprise level, but again, when at the very beginning, it's much more effective, I think, to start at the SMB level. Find the people that who you can connect with more instantly, who are more accessible, be that the CEO, the owner, the key decision maker, as opposed to sort of larger enterprise where it can be a bit more of a diluted decision making process. But for us, yeah, as I said, we started small. Now, very much companies from 200 to 5,000 headcount in a regulated industry in UK, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand, as we've obviously gone on to raise more money and expand the sales and go-to-market motion teams there. But yes, so I mean, we have a clean idea. Now the question is, as we launch new products or launch new services, how do we expand that ICP from those early adopters into the broader market, and what does that new ICP look like as you look to step up?
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of that, Veremark being pretty much an international company, global organization, you cover a lot of markets. What has been your learning in terms of your channel to market? How have you gone about that international expansion to execute that go-to-market strategy?
So we and again, you never get anything, you don't get a lot of things right second time as well. One of the things I would do on the third time is going to really reiterate on that, having that tight first initial ICP and that tight first market, because Veremark as a product has to sell or deliver background checks across 150, 180 plus countries. We were international almost from day one, and therefore, when business came in, we just started to close it on a global scale wherever it was, and obviously that caused all kinds of learning curves in the process. The the real way that we have subsequently done it is one, use partnerships and channels and strategic alliances. Obviously, when we first met, you were at Human Force, I think, many years ago, and that was a strategic route to market for us. As we're working with the likes of Deal or Remote or Certain, all of these big employer of records that then started to let us see where actually latent or market demand was, right? So we could see this market showing a spike, that market showing a spike. What if we then subsequently, it was like a testing plan to see where the market demands were coming from. India's doing lots of background checks. What would happen if we started running our own outbound demand gen campaigns into India? Okay, that doesn't work. What about the UK and so forth? So we found that partnerships, as I say, was a nice, easy way, a low cost and efficient way to get a more global view where the pockets of demand would be, and then be able to invest further into that.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think there's two key messages there: is find those partners who already have the established relationship and established trust with your buyers and leverage them to help you penetrate those markets. And the second one is listen to data, look for those spikes and those trends that might be an indicator that the market is ripe for your solutions. So that sounds really good. Daniel, last
That's
question.
for sure.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I mean, often, by the time you've got 10 customers or 10, 15 customers, you'll be able to see a couple of spikes, right? You'll know the name of the buyer, the role that they're in. There should be, probably some sort of 50%, 60 rating of the industry they're coming from or the size of organization. And then just start using that to double down on the existing, as an ideal customer persona, ICP, to try and get the next to 10. If you can get to 10, as Jason Lincoln says, you can get to 100. If you get to 100, then, you can get to 1,000. So, as long as as soon as you can start getting data, don't be too worried about leading into it.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Helps you make those informed decisions about where you're going to focus your energy. Now, given that a lot of the people who'll be watching this, they'll be early stage founders starting out, most likely on their first journey, what would be one single piece of advice that you would give to an early stage founder that you think would give them the greatest chance of setting themselves up for success?
you've just got to be prepared for the hard times. I'm afraid. You know, if you know, you'll stop making progress the day you give up. So the only thing you can do to keep going forward is just not give up. You know, it's a cliche and famous quote by Winston Churchill. But if you're going through hell, then just keep going. You know, there will be dark days, there will be great days, but ultimately, you know, the startups, scale ups, and the global enterprises that made up, you know, all got there just by having the resilience and persistence to keep going and delivering on whatever needed to be delivered on that day. So, you know, keep your chin up and just go for it.
And is there anything that you did that helped you do that, that helped you be more resilient and persistent and just to keep going? Do you have any sort of regime that you do yourself that has enabled you to do that?
I mean, I have a very, you know, I made sure that I had a good support network with me. Obviously, I mentioned the two co-founders, but I obviously had an understanding wife who knew me from the first venture as well, and was therefore happy for me to go on the second one. But I think, as I say, you've just got to not be too myopic about the bad things that have happened, right? And then make sure that you can look at all the progress that you've made and actually stand back and realize it, right? There's often you get too focused on the one step as opposed to the 10 steps you've already taken. And therefore, just by realizing how far you've come, you know, obviously, yes, you know how far you've got to go, but you know what seemed insurmountable then is now just common practice. So break it, you know, break whatever the challenge is down, you know, tackle it step by step, and as I say, just you know, persevering and hard work gets you a long way.
Yeah, fantastic. And just be aware of and celebrate those wins as you have them and reflect on them to ensure that you realize the progress you are making.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Daniel. It's been great talking with you today. And yeah, look forward to continuing to watch the success of Veremark.
Right, guys, thanks very much. If I can be of help to anyone, then obviously feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or however most convenient.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that, Daniel.